Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Ironton.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Alongside John Bruce, my name is Dewey Dailey, as we welcome you into episode 45 here on the show. You know, we went into week 5 thinking it may not be that interesting, but man, there were some outcomes in week 5 that we're going to talk about, and excited to start the second half of the high school football season at a location that we'll announce later in the show, because this will obviously come out before the graphics posted. But
we may have been there once already.
We may have been there once, and it may or may not have been on Friday. So that's the hint. If you want to take a guess, but
that's true.
We've got a lot of other big time sports to not big time sports, but big time matchups to talk about in our other sports, volleyball and soccer that we saw last week, and we'll see coming up this week. Another volleyball stream for us here this coming Tuesday. So tonight, when this comes out. But yeah, exciting week to kick off the second half of the season here.
Yeah, so we're taping this on Monday night. The Bengals are getting ready to lose to the Red Commanders. Yeah. Sorry.
Remember when Jim Nance said that? It was like last year.
I think he just straight up said it.
No, he did. He did. And Tony Romo was like...
yeah. So the Bengals and Commanders are going to play it in a little bit, and maybe we'll get to see some of it. We'll see.
I doubt it. They start in 15 minutes.
Yeah, our fantasy teams are going against each other this week in our big money league. It's not big money. Yeah. And so our teams are not good.
No.
I did get an A+ on the draft, but it didn't matter because it's horrible.
I now know why I got a C, because Christian Kirk and Michael Pittman are terrible. And I started DeMarcus Robinson this week, and I think he had like one catch for 30 yards or something.
Yeah,
so.
I think when you got bad quarterbacks, which almost everybody's a bad quarterback at this point.
Yeah, forget quarterbacks. Tight ends are just awful. I mean, in that league I drafted Kyle Pitts, so it doesn't matter too much. But like in my other league, I drafted Mark Andrews, and so far this season he has scored 4, 9, and 0. So. Yeah. Like I said before we started taping, between my kicker, my tight end, and my defense, I got -4 points this week. So.
Yeah, that's less than ideal. But yeah,
and they were projected to score, 10, 8, and 6. That's 24. 20, so underperformed by 29. Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty close. You're not very good at math. It's 28.
What'd I say, 29?
Yeah, it's all right.
That's not what we're here to do.
Yeah, so we are here to talk about high school sports. So one thing, it's Monday night. We talked about it last week, so we should have coverage tonight of North Adams at Notre Dame volleyball. We'll find out about that coming up. I would assume we're going to have it on our website sometime this week. But also the girls golf sectional started this week. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming weeks as they get ready for the state tournament, but that was on Monday night as well. So look for those results. I believe you can find them on the OHSAA golf app, which if you pay $8, you can see the results for one different sectional. And then you can pay $8 more for another sectional, and then $8 more for another sectional, or pay $30 and you can get the whole day of sectionals. So it's not a money.
They don't pay the green fee somehow.
That's true. Yeah, especially now because
free golf.
What did you do your stand-up thing on today?
Drought and how it affects farming.
Yeah.
Also could affect the golf course. Yes. Yeah, I almost made it like a 2-parter, but there really isn't a golf major at Ohio State, so you don't really have a.
So, like, if you think about it that way, that actually does make more sense on what you have to pay, because if it helps us keep golf courses alive right now, because like my back, I can't golf right now, but if I could, I enjoy golf. Not good at it, but I enjoy it, and it'd be nice if it rained on occasion. Speaking of rain, I'll talk about that a little bit in one of the games I covered. I don't think those shoes are dry yet that I wore that night, so.
Would you bring in your slippers today?
No, I wore New Balance shoes. Yeah,
there you go.
They are the lightest shoes I've ever had. They were also very cheap, but
nice.
I don't know. They're comfortable.
All right, let's jump into the headlines for this week. Not a whole lot to talk about in terms of individual achievements, but we've got a couple, so we'll talk about them. We'll start off with sophomore quarterback at Unioto Isaac Coy. You just graduate a guy in Newton Hoops who set all kinds of records. A year later, Isaac Coy is a 16-year-old. I'm a 15 or 16-year-old. Already breaking them. Single game stuff.
So last year, Newton Hoops threw for 349 in a game. And on Friday, Isaac Coy threw for 350. Now, the fun thing is, because Isaac Coy played a little bit last year, I don't know if he was the one that threw in that game. It might have been David Long in that game. But in the Adena game, they actually didn't break the single game team passing record because they threw for more in that game. I assume that was either Long or Coy last year. But yeah, 350 yards in Friday's 51-14 win over Huntington to move the Shermans to 4-1. Coy on the year an 18-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Did throw an interception on Friday, but immediately answered by, obviously throwing for a bunch. Newton Hoops has pretty much all but one passing record now at Unioto as Isaac Coy came up from behind and did so in part to Newton's brother Blake, who's one of their really good receivers. Blake Hoops, Caden Cartwright, Cody Braden, Jackson Zickafoose. We'll kind of go over their individual numbers on the year later on in one of our game previews, but those four have been really good for them. The Beam Kid, Yusef Wilson in the backfield as well. David Long's another one. He caught a touchdown pass the other day. They've got so many weapons that they don't run the ball super well. They don't really run the ball real well right now, but they're able to get it to these really dynamic athletes and move the ball that way, which is leading to them scoring a whole lot of points. So really impressive, especially for Coy, who in their last scrimmage didn't start.
Right.
It wasn't determined until a couple days before the season that he was going to be the starting quarterback because of a couple different things happened to where it ended up where they needed Long to play on the defensive side too. So it ends up Coy steps in, has a good game against Vinton County, didn't have as good of a game against Amanda, but then has really started to step his game up each week, and they're going to need it again this week as they travel to Piketon on Friday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game a little later on. 1,300 yards through your first 5 games as a high school quarterback, not too bad.
No,
for a sophomore.
Not too bad at all. Yeah, it's he's been very efficient. He's thrown close to 70% on the year as well on his completions, so which is something you don't see a whole lot around here, especially because he's not throwing that many screens. He's throwing a lot of stuff downfield. Yeah. So, but
you can see that. Just look at Caden Cutright's numbers: 10 catches for 800 yards.
Yeah, he's like 14 catches for 445, something like that. It's something insane, and Braden, Zickafoose, and Hoops are almost like possession receivers that can break off at any time. And Cody Braden is like low key one of the better players in the area. He's had some issues with injuries in the past, but he does a really good job on the defensive side of the ball for them as well. And he even ran for over 70 yards against Huntington the other night. So maybe he's going to be their idea for a solution in the backfield. We'll kind of see. I think Carson's going to be at that game on Friday. So.
Yep, he'll be down at Piketon this Friday for that one. So we'll move on to our second and final headline. Like we said, not a whole lot of individual stuff this week in comparison to what we usually have. We had a couple school records last week, but none so far this week. It's not every week, quite literally, that you get a new school record for any of these sports. We'll talk about Wheelersburg's Ella Chamberlin. She's now over the 1,000 career assist mark. Had a big-time match in the Pirates' win over South Webster last Tuesday to, for the time being, take full control of the SOC 3, I believe, for volleyball. I think the rematch between those two is October 8th, so that's one to circle on your calendar. It went 5 sets. Wouldn't expect anything different the next time around. These are two of the top volleyball teams in our area, and we've got it written down in our notes. 51 assists in the match for Chamberlin, right? So that's right around 10 a set. I mean, just great performance by the junior.
Yeah, it helps that she's got some big hitters. Gracie Perkins, Grace Woodward, and Alyssa Mullins combined for 48 kills in that match. But at the same time, Chamberlain, only a junior. I mean, really, Perkins is the only senior on their team. So this team is going to be all coming back next year besides one of their big hitters. But, Chamberlain is one of the top, ball handlers in the area. She had, on top of the 51 assists in that match, she had 0 errors, which, I know they're not as tight on the double hits or whatnot now, but you still see them called on occasion. And to not have one or to just not poorly set up your teammate at all is really impressive. So, yeah, it's only a junior, just, sky's the limit for this Wheelersburg team, especially. I don't know what division they are. I would guess 5, but
it was a lot easier last year.
Yeah, when there's only the 4 divisions, now we're at 7, and then some sports it's 5, like in soccer. Yeah. So
I'm not going to worry about that until the brackets come out. And I'll be like, oh, they're in that division, and
So that was a big match. That's a big win for them because it was the first loss for South Webster. It's also that will give them some extra points needed in the seeding process because with teams from all around, the seeding is going to be based on who you beat and whatnot. So like they went out Saturday, beat a good Zane Trace team, and continued their winning ways. So it's a Wheelersburg team that I think really has a really high ceiling, not only this year but especially next year. Next year going to be the team to beat for sure. But right now they're still up 1 game over a really good South Webster team, and we'll look forward to that rematch, as you said, October 8th.
I think that was something we talked about last year with Wheelersburg volleyball. Is like I don't think they had a single senior on the team last year. We're like, yeah, they may not have won the league this year, but like they didn't graduate anybody. Yeah. And like we look, you kind of look at South Webster last year, and it's like, oh, they graduated probably one of, if not the greatest player in school history, and then you also lose a couple other of your big hitters on the outside. They bring a lot back, but you lose a lot at the top. So I haven't seen South Webster in person yet, but I mean we know they have Claxon and Raynard and a couple other of those players come. I think Schubert may have been one that came back as well. So they've obviously got the players, and that's why I think they're overall. I mean, they're like, was that their first loss on the season?
Yeah, I believe they're 12-1.
Yeah, so. And that's a team that challenges themselves for the most part. They're not. I mean, you mentioned how they've probably. I don't think they've played Huntington, but like when you just look in the SVC, they've played Unioto Adena, and Zane Trace, who I think are 1, 3, and 4 in the league right now. So it's a team that challenges themselves. They play teams that they could potentially see in the postseason, and they just came up short in a 5-set match, and they'll get.
Well, one of the teams they played already that we talked about them last week is Gaia Academy. Yeah. They go out and play Gaia Academy, who's a completely different league. It's not easy to get to either of those schools for either of them. So going out and challenging yourselves. And tonight they are at Jackson, which I don't think Jackson's as good as they were a year ago, but still, I mean, you're going out and challenging yourself, playing a bigger school in the non-league. And
Jackson is 2-12.
They are not as good as last year. So, yeah. So I am correct on that. So currently, based on the Max Preps rankings, which I believe is what they're going to be using, South Webster is number 52 in the state. And that is regardless of division. Yeah. So they are Division 6. They are ranked 9th right now. So
I wonder what division is Meadowbrook.
I would guess they're 4.
I just want to the chances of somebody
they're
from
the
our
Colts,
area,
right?
Yeah, because we have ran our area. The winner of the Southeast regional semi or whatever ran into Meadowbrook for like the last 3 years.
Meadowbrook is 29th in the state, regardless of division, which makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good program. They know what they're doing.
And they got a cool mascot, which just has random parts of a horse not included. There's just parts of it just not drawn in. And for as good as Max Preps is, I still hate it because this is taking
just a bunch of ads.
They are Division 4, where they are ranked, 3rd right now, behind Kenton Ridge around Springfield.
Malik Harrison.
I was going to say Hydra. No, that was Walnut Ridge.
Oh.
I was going to say Hydra Cats and Dogs.
So that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then Archbishop McNicholas.
Nice.
Yeah. Jimmy John's. Right? Was it Jimmy John's?
Jimmy John's Field?
No, they were Penn Station.
Yeah, Penn Station
Field. So, yeah, that's the top 3. And then the number 5 team is Warren.
There we go.
Yeah. I didn't know Warren was that good. So, because we don't cover Warren.
We don't.
No.
We don't.
We don't. We definitely don't. Circleville is the highest of our local teams, and then Fairfield Union is right below them.
All right. Let's move on to football. talk about a couple games from last week. We'll first talk about our game that we live streamed, the Kingston National Bank Game of the Week. St. Trace and Piketon Pioneers win their second consecutive league win. They're now 2-3 overall, 2-0 in the South Valley Conference. 23-20 win for the Pioneers as Piketon drops to 3-2, now an even 1-1 in the SVC. I was not there, had a wedding. You, Carson, and Kenny handled everything last Friday. It seemed like it ended up being a pretty good game.
Most of the game.
Yeah,
minus
4 minutes.
Yeah, about 4 minutes.
3.5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, it's a step up from the week before.
I'll tell you what.
Spread as well.
Apparently, there are some people weren't super pumped about how the clock worked. But I'll tell you what, if they really wanted to count down the timing, they could see that it was pretty accurate on the clock. Late in the half, Zane Trace went out of bounds with the second left. Some people not from Zane Trace thought there should have been no time left. But on the play, they started the play with 7 seconds left. Only 6 seconds should have went off the clock, which did, and they were able to kick the field goal. So that was a pretty big play in the game. So now there may have been some clock issues before that, but, that doesn't matter. It comes down to the last.
And I will say, before we move on,
I love Zane Trace.
That's one of the things we run into a lot, and we've kind of received criticism for it. Not a lot, but our scoreboard system is solely dependent on what the scoreboard at the stadium says. We do not control it. We have a little tiny camcorder that shoots a picture of the scoreboard. It is very tiny. We could go grab it, but I'm not going to get up. It's very tiny. We shoot the scoreboard. Whatever it says, it mirrors it, implements it into our scoreboard. So if they get the score wrong, if the clock's wrong, it looks wrong on our end, but it's like we're not controlling it.
We're not the official clock, but we are based off of the official
and you'd
clock.
be surprised to know that that's what every single Fox, ESPN, they all do that. They use a camera that's a lot better than our little $60 mini camera, and they shoot the game clock at the stadium, and that's and if you watch some of the lower level ESPN broadcasts of
you'll see the digital.
No, you will literally see it is just a video of the scoreboard. It's not implemented into the scoreboard. It's literally a video. And you see that a lot with
and if it's a stadium that isn't super tight with their stuff, you can see it bouncing sometimes.
Mm-hmm. No, and the places you see that most is when you see Ivy League basketball games broadcast on ESPN, and it's Harvard versus Monmouth or something. Yeah. I don't think Monmouth's Ivy League, but it's all right. That's the kind of matchup we're talking about. And you literally see the bulb lights on, and it's it's not all that different.
They've got money to spend on other stuff,
right?
As opposed to sports. But yeah, so kind of a rundown of the game. The first half was a lot cleaner than the second half, but we had we did have a big controversial call in the first half. It was a 4th and goal from the 1.
Was the reverse touchdown?
Yeah.
I was watching when that happened.
So,
I was very lost.
Zane Trace's Bryce Johnson goes in. He's hit around the goal line. We are 60 yards away and up in the press box, so we can't see it. So we don't know for sure. So I have no opinion on it. But there was no call. Both teams are kind of pointing Piketon saying he didn't get in, Zane Trace saying he got in. Also making no call are the officials. Then the officials came over, got together. One of them points Piketon's way. Piketon goes and celebrates because they just got a goal line stop against
Bryce Johnson.
Bryce Johnson's a monster. And then the back judge comes in. Keep in mind, back judge not on the goal line. Comes in.
Quite far from it, actually.
Yeah, and they talk about it, and it ends up being a touchdown. Once again, I don't know if he got in or not. I have no opinion on it. All I know is you gotta, the back judge has got to get in there and talk before anyone signals. The signal was the issue. They could have taken 5 minutes to figure it out. People wouldn't have been happy, but if you figure it out, you figure it out. But you gotta get together. You can't just have. I'm gonna guess there was either 5 or 6 officials that game. I think it was 6. You can't have 5 of them be in the conference and one just be like, I'm coming.
Touchdown.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know. They called it a touchdown, so I'm guessing it was a touchdown. But it ends up being a really big play in the game. They go up 7-0. Piketon ends up coming back. and score, and they missed the extra point, so 7-6. Zane Trace goes back. Johnson scores again. They miss the extra point, goes 13-6. Then a really nice drive by Piketon late in the first half. They score on a 4th and goal, or it might have been like a 4th and 3, but it was from the 5, and a really, really nice route ran by Mason Thacker. Luke Gullion connected with him. He gets into the corner and scores. They make the extra point, 13-all. Then right before the half, kind of the controversial, but not if you look at the actual timing of the clock, play, the Gunnar McCullough rolls to his right, hits Peyton Dotson, who gets out of bounds with a second left, setting up a 32-yard field goal for Judah Hanks to end the first half. He had missed missed the previous extra point and just absolutely drilled the kick from the right hash. Like, it was beautiful, and gives the I almost said Streaks Pioneers a 16-13 lead at the half. Second half was not nearly as pretty. It started with 3 straight turnovers, interception that Piketon threw an interception on their first play, maybe their second play, but then each team fumbled back and forth. Eventually, Zane Trace extends their lead to 23-13 on a Silas Stewart short touchdown. Piketon, it seems like the game's over. Right? Bryce Johnson scores, and then there is a late penalty flag. I think it was probably right. It was called a blindside block. I think it was just a block in the back, but they called the blindside block downfield, and Bryce Johnson was pretty much past the play at the time, so it would have been the game. But it keeps Piketon in the game. Next play, Zach Hanna just rips the ball away from the ball carrier, goes about 30 yards the opposite way, eventually sets up a score for Gullion, and makes it a 23-20 game. Piketon gets one more stop, but they're unable to get downfield to set up for maybe a game-tying field goal or game-winning score as they come up short on 4th down. So Zane Trace ends up winning. Like you said, back-to-back wins the Open League play. They're 2-3 overall, 2-0 in the SEC. Played a really tough non-conference schedule with Logan Elm and Waverly, and then going to North Union. It's just, a really tough schedule. So it got them really ready for the league. Bryce Johnson, 18 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. He missed week 4. He looked really good in week 5. He left with a slight injury in the first half.
What is it? What is the NHL always do?
Lower body injury.
Yeah,
lower body injury. Came back in the second half, and you would never have thought that he was hurt. Like, I mentioned it on the broadcast of, like, hey, he's got like 20 minutes to just sit or like get this thing fixed, and apparently they got it taken care of pretty quickly because he came out with a vengeance in the second half. Silas Stewart, 16 rushes, 83 yards, a touchdown. Gunnar McCullough, 17 carries, 69 yards, but he also took a couple knees late, so he was close to the 80-yard mark. Here's a ridiculous number. Hudson Williams, who had the interception for Zane Trace, 18 tackles as well. Go. And then Judah Hanks had that 32-yard field goal. For Piketon, Luke Gullion was 13-28 for 118 yards and a touchdown. Also 21 carries, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. When he dropped back, and it wasn't necessarily designed, but man, when he dropped back and then scrambled, he was just absolutely dynamic throughout the game. Buddy Wilson, who missed the last 2 weeks, had 22 carries, 95 yards, and then Mason Thacker, 7 catches for 37 yards. Really good job of containing him because he was averaging close to 20 a catch. He still got his catches, but he wasn't able to bust the big plays like he had been in the past. So it's a good game. Yeah, and
a lot closer than what last year's was.
Yes, even though last year was only an 11-point game, but still it was a late score.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that close.
But we've had a pretty good run of close games. Yeah. So
hopefully another one coming up this week down at a place we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about a game that I think it didn't catch everybody by surprise. So I don't know how many viewers we actually get off of SC Ohio Preps, but somebody on that game thread prior to the game said West 35-28.
Really?
And I hope they see that they nailed it, because Portsmouth West has beat Waverly for, I think, the 3rd year in a row now.
Yeah. Because
obviously they won the league perfect 6 or 7-0, however many games they played 2 years ago. They beat them last year. And then they beat him again this year. I don't know the exact spread. I would assume it was like 20 points. James Cook just scored a touchdown. How about that?
Was it thrown?
No, it was like 7-yard rushing.
Oh, no. Because I'm playing you.
Oh, yeah,
You
Josh
got him in that
Allen.
other league, too.
I'll be honest. I wouldn't mind if you won. I care about the SOSA league a little bit, but the other one just means more. It's like the SEC, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to this.
I hate that phrase so much.
I think Waverly was 20-point favorites, and West beats them again. West has now won 3 games in a row, right? And the downpour kind of continues for this Waverly team that we held to such a high standard about 4 weeks ago, right? After that big win at Miami Trace. Since then, it just hasn't been very impressive. You beat Zane Trace 28-7. You didn't score in the second half. They didn't have a quarterback, which honestly, looking back on that game, surprises me now with how a team like West just ran all over.
Right.
It surprises me that Bryce Johnson didn't go for about 400 yards
Right.
and 5 touchdowns in that game. But West, in that game, they only threw 2 passes. Brody Hall, 2 for 2, 29 yards. Mason Parker, that's another thing. Mason Parker didn't play. 2 carries for 2 carries for 18 yards. Must have obviously got banged up a little bit. Anthony Bishop. First name may not sound familiar, but for Waverly fans, the last name most definitely does. Yeah. As the Bishop last name has been a thorn in the Tigers' side for the last 2 years now. Last year, it was his older brother, Jeffrey Bishop. I think it was 4 picks, a kick return for a touchdown. I think he had a rushing touchdown as well. This time around, the sophomore Anthony Bishop, 42 totes, 283, 4 touchdowns. And on top of that, another sophomore, Braden Atkins, 11 carries for 115 and a touchdown. The ground game was an absolute killer for this West offense. That's something you knew going in. They don't throw it a lot. They haven't thrown it a ton, and it seems like as the season has gone on, they've actually thrown less and less each game.
Even though I thought Hall looked good throwing the ball. But
absolutely. 2 for 2 for 29 yards.
Yeah,
that's not a bad yards per completion ratio either.
Yeah, if you're able to run for 500 yards in a game.
Without your main back.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that surprised me is that Parker ultimately was a non-factor due to what we're presuming to be an injury. Hopefully he's back soon for this West team. They're at Minford this next week, so you would figure on paper that's probably a 4th consecutive win for them. But for Waverly, I don't... It seems to be... It's not an offensive problem. I think the last few weeks, outside of the Unioto game that they only score 14, but I think Unioto is pretty proven up front, and I think that's something that going into the season we thought that would be a struggle for Waverly, but after the first 2 weeks we were like, well, maybe it's not. Well, the last 3 weeks, those assumptions have somewhat come to light as teams with decent guys up front and decent run games have just killed them. I mean, last week, and I didn't think too much of it, but the close game with Valley, it's like, wow, 27-21.
Yeah, because we have a lot of respect for Valley. Also,
even though they're
best
0-5 team in the state. Them and Chillicothe. Chillicothe is a very good 0-5 team too, but I think McNeil is also a little banged up for Valley. I don't know if he's going to play this week or not, but 27-21 last week. I didn't think much of it. I'm like, well, that's a little close, but they got the win. But this week, to give up 283, 42 carries, which for a high school kid, especially a 16-year-old, to carry the ball 42 times, I mean, that's a testament to what he's going to be the next 2 years for the West Side.
Yeah, and we saw him. I mean, really, a lot of what they did in the second half against Chillicothe was behind him running the ball. And now he wasn't breaking off big runs then, but he was breaking off solid gains every time. And then you also have, you mentioned the Atkins kid who we didn't see against Chillicothe, but 11 carries for 115 yards is pretty good as your change of pace guy coming in. Yep. And if they can get Mason Parker back along with those two, that's going to make them even scarier for teams down the stretch. Now, we'll kind of see how they end up. I know, they got Minford, then they got Valley and Northwest and Oak Hill coming up.
I'm telling you what, for West, that's 4 wins.
Yeah, I think if McNeil is back, that one could be close with Valley. We'll see Northwest. Well, we might see Northwest. So but Northwest and Valley are both at home. I feel like they are figuring things out. They're really well coached, and maybe they don't defend the pass all that well, but those next 4 teams don't throw the ball that much. So
here's who I'm worried for, and I'll connect the dots. I'm worried for Portsmouth because how good is Fairland? I mean, they beat Portsmouth West, 49-0, 39-0, 34-0, and after that game, we're like, man, West must be down horrendously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they lost week 2 as well. I don't remember to who and to how. By how
they
much.
got beat bad by Portsmouth.
Oh, did they get beat by Portsmouth?
They got beat by, I think it was 41-7.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember that now.
And then the Hillsborough game. But they were throwing a lot of passes those first 2 weeks.
That is true.
And since then, they've thrown, was it 2, 4, and
2? They've thrown,
no, it was 1, 4, and 2. They only threw one pass against Hillsborough.
And it was Parker.
Yeah.
And who knows what that looked like.
Right. Yeah. So they have
play on film.
And when we saw their offensive line before that Chillicothe game, we were like, man, these dudes are big.
Yep.
Yeah. So got some big, nasty dudes up front. They've got multiple guys that can run the ball. They've got.
And it's sustainable. It seemed like they almost got more energy and better as the game went on.
Yeah, they were in very good shape.
So, yeah, I mean, SOC 2, you figure it's going to go to Wheelersburg just because that's just what it has been. But, I mean, what you thought may have been a closer to the bottom half of the league team in Portsmouth West, I mean, there's a good chance they are like 7-2 come week 10 against Wheelersburg.
And at home.
And undefeated in, well, they should have, well, no, I guess they played their extra non-conference game in week 4. So it's just straight league play for them the rest of the way out. So, I mean, they haven't quite cracked my top 10 in the power rankings. I think you had them in yours originally to start the season. But man, I don't know that
they're very close in ours.
I'm very worried about this Waverly team at the moment because, like we said, outside of the first 2 weeks of the season, it hasn't been great. Now for them. And offense hasn't been the problem. I mean, you score 28 points against a West defense that really probably isn't too bad, right? They've got athletes. Now, the one thing for West is you're playing a lot of the same guys both sides of the ball, but like we just said, I mean, those dudes are conditioned, clearly.
Well, this is the thing for Wheelersburg. They've got 2 games in a row where they can get right. For
Waverly.
Yeah. Is that what I said?
I said Wheelersburg.
Oh, either way, let's go Waverly. We're talking about Waverly.
They get Oak Hill this week.
Yeah, they get Oak Hill this week. Then they're at Minford. So there's 2 games they should win. But then they've got Wheelersburg in week 8. Right now they're projected to lose by 18. But here's the thing: they're projected.
Man, I tell you what,
they're projected to win by 40 the next 2 weeks, which they could. But they have not scored above 28 points in a game yet this year. To me, even though their offense has not been an issue. They don't run the ball really.
I haven't seen them. Well, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, they don't really run the ball at a really efficient clip. They have got great playmakers on the outside. They got a really good quarterback in Mason Kelly. You kind of would think they'd score more, but they haven't really been able to. We'll see if they can kind of get things adjusted a little bit the next 2 weeks because they're going to need it to beat a good Wheelersburg team.
Well, they can't sustain drives is the problem because, like whenever you can't. So it's 1st and 10, you're on your own 40. Okay, you can't run because it's just like we said, it's not very efficient. This is the J Cert effect. You lose your school's all-time leading rusher. There's going to be issues in the run game the following year, and not a knock on Cade Carroll, and we've also mentioned how Waverly's extremely young up front, so the run blocking isn't going to be as good as it was for J Cert. So every part of the run game might take a step back just because you have a new guy in the backfield that hasn't seen that many carries yet, and you have new guys up front. But it doesn't help when the other team doesn't respect the run so much that they're dropping 6 or 7 dudes back in coverage and only rushing 3. Mm-hmm. So if it is a pass play, you're running 4 guys on routes and there's 7 guys guarding them. So you figure, well, that's an incomplete pass. Now it's 2nd and 10. Mm-hmm. Well, you're probably gonna have to throw again. I mean, it's just hard, and I think that's probably what happened here. Is they just weren't able to sustain drives, and that's kind of
on that Miami Trace game, they didn't sustain
that's what
drives.
I was going to say.
Yeah, because the first drive was a big touchdown pass. It was like a 56-yarder. They had back-to-back short touchdown drives. One was like a 20-yard touchdown drive, and then one was a kickoff return. So, as you said, not really sustaining drives. So it's something they're going to have to figure out because after Wheelersburg, it's Northwest, but then you host Mount Healthy.
Right.
Who's right now a top 100 team on here. So,
well, like we said, 2 weeks that Waverly should be able to get right, build up some confidence, hopefully be 5-2 come week 8, and you play a Wheelersburg team that, hey, I mean, you never know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Wheelersburg be vulnerable this year against teams like Ironton. I don't want to say they were vulnerable against Jackson because that game obviously came down to the wire,
Right.
but you've seen them get beat, right? So the film is out there, and who knows, come week 8, we could potentially be talking about Waverly winning the SOC again, right? I think at that point they would have to hope for a tie because I don't really know if West could lose to any of these teams, but I mean, you don't know. I mean, we could come whenever West plays Valley. Valley might beat them because I tell you what,
Valley's got a really good defensive front.
Yeah, Valley's a very. Tell you what, Valley is like the trappiest of all trap games because they're 0-5, but man, they do not play like an 0-5 team. At least from the one game I've seen and from some of the box scores we've seen.
So, I'll tell you one team. Let me see if I can locate them real quick. It's Cleveland Benedictine.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard of them.
I've not.
Yeah. So last year, I'm going to say they were in Region 1. Well, I'll find them.
Is this a 0-10 team with a positive point differential or something?
Not quite that crazy, but
I don't know if that's possible.
No, but I mean, they could be 1-9.
Yeah, they could be 1-9 and have a positive point differential.
Yeah, I don't know where they're at. But last year they did not win a game, and I think they were like a top 100 team ranked on the Fantastic 50 because their schedule was so absurd.
It's kind of like you having Wheelersburg at like 4
and
moving up to 4 from 5 after moving to 0-3 or whatever it was.
Right, exactly. That's just what I'm talking about. Okay, Benedictine is 4-1. They're Division 3. Last year, or 2 years ago, they finished 0-10, and in the Division 3 rankings, they were 26th based off of their like opponents' scores. So like their opponents were 9-3, 15-1, 10-2, 9-1, 7-5, 4-6, 2-8, 8-2, 14-2, 9-3. So you're just playing you're playing really good teams constantly. Now, obviously that's a little different than what Valley's played so far, but Valley's played some really good teams so far, and you know, at some point things are going to kind of balance out for them now with having extra injuries. That doesn't help things, but I'll use Fantastic 50 again. So right now Valley is ranked as the 7th best team in Region 24 out of 25.
So they're a 7 seed right now?
No.
Or they're just ranked that.
Ranked based on the computers.
Yeah.
So, and that's how good.
So what you're telling me is we could potentially see another 3-7 Valley playoff team, but maybe they win one this year. Maybe they host one this year.
They've got them right now 3-7 and out of the playoffs. So now
that's probably, but they have them underdogs this week against Northwest by I think 12. Maybe it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, my bad.
But that they don't know McNeil's out. So
that is true. And I don't know if that's official either.
Right.
That was just what I read.
Banged up. Yeah.
Lower body injury.
Yes.
Could have been like a broken arm or something. I don't know. All right. Are we ready to move on to power rankings? Go. We got something new this week. We're going to rank our top 10, which really not a lot of movement, just like, well, technically a lot of movement, but it seems like everybody just kind of moved up one for us. But we're going to rank our top 20 this week, so we're going to also rank 11 through 20 to give a little love to some of these teams that are fringe top 10 teams, maybe not quite fringe, maybe fringe top 20 teams, but just to kind of show that we recognize some of these teams that may not be in our top 10.
You know, if you're not in the top 10, we haven't talked a whole lot about them, so you know, this will give us a chance to shout out some different teams that are having really good starts to the year and whatnot so far, so this should be fantastic. So are we doing top 10 first?
We can just, we'll go top 10 and then 11 through 20, but did you know that Perfection 1 has served Southern Ohio? I messed that up so much. Did you know that Perfection 1 Collision Center has served Southern Ohio families and student athletes for over 30 years?
No.
You did not? Well, I tell you what.
It was a long time.
I tell you what, they're one of the oldest collision centers serving Pickaway, Ross, and Pike counties, featuring state-of-the-art equipment, technology, and manufacturer certifications. Certifications may vary by location. Perfection 1, we meet by accident and are highly recommended.
I like the recommended.
I do.
But
I feel like
they're also one of the newer ones in Pike County.
They are.
As their Pike County location is only a couple years old. So make sure you check them out. It's on Route 23. As Dewey said, we meet by accident. So you don't really want to see them unless it's just to kind of check out things and maybe, you want to get a, what's that thing called?
What?
If you get hit?
A fender bender.
Yeah, you get a fender bender, but you get a, this is so bad. I'm so bad at I can't think of.
I feel like every time I say the recommended joke, I get a year older.
You do?
Yeah, that's like such a dad joke.
I probably should be the one that says that. But is my beard and trimmer broke, so now I just have a full beard. And so.
Hey,
but no, if you want to get a quote, there it is.
There you go.
If you want to get a quote, make sure you check them out in Pickaway, Ross, and Pike County. I know we have them on whatever it's called now, X.
It's very funky handle.
Yeah, it's kind of funky, but but you can find their information, at their website and whatnot. Yeah, outstanding service.
All right, let's move on to our power rankings. We'll first go over our top 10s, and then we'll rank for the first time on Overtime our top 20, 11 through 20. So do you want to kick it off, or would you like me to go first this week?
I'll defer.
Okay, so I will go first. You'll do the 11 through 20 first. You don't elect to kick, you defer, as you would want to do. All right. Same number one, as always, Ironton. Let me pull up the North Fork Animal Clinic scoreboard so I can be accurate with all of my scores that I'm about to hand out while we do the power rankings. So Ironton, wow, 41-0 this week over Bishop Hartley. It really didn't matter what they won by. They're going to be our number one team for the rest of the season. That's just kind of how it is.
Bishop Hartley's so good, and they beat them 41-0.
Yeah, this Ironton team, could they beat Ohio State? Could they compete with any team in the state? What was the other one? Is this the best Ironton team of all?
See, that one I feel like could actually that one. You can probably actually talk about that, but So could they compete with Ohio State? No, they can't.
Some interesting threads. I would love to see Quinshawn Judkins just put the entire Ironton defense in a spin cycle. But regardless, we'll move on to number two, a new number two this week for the first time since I think week 2 when we bumped Wheelersburg down for Jackson. At the moment, we've got Fairfield up there. They've looked impressive every step of the way this season. Plans on seeing them in week 7 down in Portsmouth for what will presumably be the OVC League title game. Not much of a test this past week, 40-7 over Gallia. Seems like most of the OVC teams, mostly Portsmouth and Fairfield most recently, have just kind of taken turns seeing who can put up the most points on Gallias. We've mentioned they're down pretty badly. So we'll move on to number 3. Jackson bumps down 1 slot. A lose to Ross. Don't know a whole lot about Ross, but going in, according to Fantastic 50, Jackson was, I think, a 20-point favorite, and they lose 28-21. And I think it was Wilmington. Ross lost to somebody, and it was either Wilmington or maybe they played Wilmington really close. But it was like a team you wouldn't expect a team that beat Jackson to be in a close game with. Now we ended up dropping Waverly all the way down out of our top 10 from the loss to West. So now we've got. It's really just 5 through 10 from last week, but it's now 4 through 9, right? With Miami Trace, Paint Valley, Wheelersburg, Unioto, Logan, Elm, and Portsmouth, they all win. So that is the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And new number 10. We both have the same number 10 with Athens in that spot. They're 5-0, 2-0 in the TVC. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember who. It was a 35-7 win over Benton County last week. We'll see what they do in the TVC, right? They've got some games coming up against, like Nelsonville, York, and Wellston, where we'll see what this Athens team is really made of. But, that's my top 10. We actually have, I believe, the same teams in the top 10. We just have them in slightly different orders.
True that. So, my number 1, the Ironton Fighting Tigers. Shocker, obviously. Number 2, I also have the Fairfield Dragons, as they've been very impressive throughout the year. I want to say, let me take a look and see. I've got my preseason. I had Fairland number 7. I feel smart right now. So, they've moved up pretty much every week for me. Jackson, they do drop down a spot, losing to Hamilton Ross. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad loss, but it's something that I didn't, like you said, didn't really expect. Wheelersburg to 4. I believe that is where I had them last week. I wouldn't trust myself on saying otherwise. Miami Trace, number 5. Paint Valley is my number 6, as they just keep rolling. Like, they really, until week 8, we have them. Where it's not a...
Which week was it for? Which game?
It was for Paint Valley.
Oh, Paint Valley and Unioto, it's week 9.
No, Paint Valley and Piketon. It was week 7.
Week 7.
So right now, they do play Adena at home in week 6. Which they should win that pretty handily. And then they have Piketon, and then at Huntington, and then at Unioto before they host Zane Trace in week 10. So things will get a lot tougher here in the next couple weeks for Paint Valley, but man, they have just rolled people so far. So shout out to them for still being undefeated and doing it very impressively. So they are my number 6. Number 7, Logan Elm continues to win after that tough game against Miami Trace. Portsmouth is my number 8. Unioto is my number 9, and then my number 10 is the Athens Bulldogs.
There you go.
Yeah, so their schedule hasn't been the best so far. Now, they are Marietta's only loss. Marietta isn't really highly thought of by the computers, but they're Marietta's only loss. Alexander's not very good. Vinton County's way down from last year. They got Warren this week, which I feel like they're kind of a comfortable, comfortable favorite over. Then at Meggs, they have Wellston at home, who they're a huge favorite over on here for some reason. And then River Valley, and then at Nelsonville, which they also have them as a big favorite over. Currently, though, strength of schedule in Division 3 is 108th out of 109 for Athens. So they are going to be likely undefeated going into the playoffs, but it's going to be against one of the weaker schedules in the state. So we'll see. They have been taking care of business. That's the only thing you can do. Take care of who's in front of you, and they've done a really good job of that so far, and that is why they are 5-0.
Do you want to do 11 through 20 or you want me to?
I'll go.
Okay.
I want to go.
All right.
Don't argue with me.
There you go.
So, number 11, I've got the West Senators, who are 3-2, winners of 3 consecutive games after a really rough first couple weeks. And I would say, we talked after week 1 of the biggest improvement is going to be between weeks 1 and 2. Theirs has came between weeks 2 and 3, as they have really turned things on the last 2 weeks. Really impressed with the Senators. Then number 12 is a team I would never even have considered in the preseason, which is Amanda Clear Creek.
Yep.
Especially after week 1. Week 1, they lose to Linda McKinley, who's not very good. And then they beat Unioto in week 2, beat Adena in week 3. They lose in week 4 to Bloom Carroll, who probably all but Ironton would lose to that Bloom Carroll team. And then they beat Circleville last week. So they have beaten 3 teams that are over 500 right now. I'm not sure outside of Ironton if many teams in our area have beaten 3 teams that are over 500 right now. So really impressed with what they've done so far. So we'll kind of see. They're going to be one that'll be kind of floating around throughout, because that whenever Unioto keeps looking better and better. Number 13, I have the Waverly Tigers. 14, I have the Eastern Eagles, undefeated still. I think you'll talk a little bit about how they won the other day, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, you want me to do it now?
No, you got them.
Okay.
You got them seated higher than me, ranked higher. 15, I've got Circleville at. They're 3-2. They started off 3-0. They lost their last 2, but still got chances to get things right for them. 16, I've got Zane Trace, which I feel like is just going to keep getting higher and higher, because if they can stay healthy with that three-headed monster of Johnson, Stewart, and McCullough in the backfield. That's just going to make them really tough to stop. Hillsboro, I have 17. 18, I have Wellston. 19, I have the Piketon Red Streaks. And 20th, at 4-1, I have the Rock Hill Redmen.
My turn now?
Your turn.
All right. I've got Eastern at 11, right? They're 5-0. Haven't played an SOC one game yet. Wait, what conference is Southern in? Oh, Southern's in the TVC, aren't they?
TVC hockey.
Hawking, right. So the one we technically don't cover. But
Yeah.
Eastern 5-0. Yeah, that is true. Let's add more teams to our coverage area.
Let's go another hour east.
But we'll talk about the Eastern Eagles, right? They're 5-0. 27-21 win over Southern Racine. The Tornadoes this past Friday. Last-second touchdown from Eric Manley. I'm not sure who exactly it was thrown to, but big-time play by Manley to keep the Eagles
first-year quarterback.
Right, first-year quarterback. I believe it was Drew Morton. Was definitely Morton.
It was Morton.
I don't remember what his first name was, but
I want to say Heath. It's not Heath.
No.
I think Heath Morton went to Unioto.
But
I think I had him in school.
But, for Eastern, head coach Tomlinson.
Dylan Morton, there
you go. They're 5-0. Obvious favorites right now in the SOC 1. We've said Notre Dame and South Gallia are teams that might contest for that, and we'll see that in the later second half of the season coming up. I've got West in my 12th spot. This is probably the closest they've ever been to cracking my top 10. I think you started them out at 8. They started off 0-2. They've won 3 straight. Very impressive win over Waverly in Week 5. Speaking of Waverly, currently have them in the 13 spot. We both have them there. Started off hot. Big time win over Miami Trace, who, right now for Miami Trace, they are at 4 for, actually they're at 5 for you, 4 for me, so they're still in the top half of our power rankings in our coverage area, so we still hold them to a high regard. I'm not sure how that game would go if it was played this coming week, but I'm not sure Waverly would win that one, as it seems like since that game, Waverly has kind of regressed a little bit, but Miami Trace has seemingly gotten a lot better, right? They haven't lost since that home opener against Waverly. In the 14 spot, we've got Wellston. They're 4-1. Don't know a lot about them. It's kind of a similar story like with Athens. I'm not sure that they've been super tested yet. Now, when they do play Athens, we'll kind of get a glimpse of that. But they're 4-1. 1-0 in the TVC after winning last week, so they land at my 14 spot. 15 and 16, we've got the two teams that were our K&B game last week, Zane Trace and Piketon. Piketon a better record, but obviously Zane Trace with the win over the Red Streaks in Week 5 at home, so that lands them just ahead of Piketon, who's 3-2 overall. I'm not as high on Amanda as you are. I still have them in my top 20. They're at 17. They're 3-2, 1-1 in the MSL. We said obviously they lose to Bloom Carroll. A lot of teams are going to do that. The loss to Lynn McKinley didn't look good, but you beat Unioto. You kind of expected to beat Adena. Honestly, after the win over Unioto, you would have expected the Adena win to maybe be a little bit more, but with the way that they run their offense, it seems to be very time-consuming, so there may have been a fumble or two or, something that, you don't really count on happening. I don't think anybody counts on fumbles, but...
No, but you mentioned them being time-consuming, but they scored 30 points in a quarter against your number 18 team.
They did. So, in the 18 spot, we've got Circleville, 3-2, 0-2 in the MSL. Haven't won a league game yet, but I've been impressed with their skilled guys. They have a winning record, and I think they've played maybe the toughest. I don't think they've played Bloom yet, so that would be a big game coming up. But I think for the most part, they've played a lot of the tough teams that they're going to play this year, outside of Bloom Carroll, who's without a doubt the toughest team they're going to play. In the 19 spot, we've got Northwest. They're 3-2. 1-1 in the SOC 2. Haven't quite played a lot of teams yet. We talked about how they had the overtime win over McLean, which we don't think McLean is quite as good as they were last year with Potts and Penwell. But they're 3-2. They've got a big game coming up, a rivalry game coming up this Friday against Valley, and then in the 20 spot, I also have Rock Hill at 4-1. So 1-1 in the OVC. Rock Hill, I don't think has quite been tested yet. I don't think they've played Colgrove. They haven't played Fairland or...
They beat up on Chesapeake.
Well, they must have played... Yeah. I think they did... Who did they play in the OVC? I didn't even check. I didn't check their record. I can check it now. Maybe they did play... I think they may have got beat by Colgrove, maybe. Let me check that. They're 4-1. Oh, no, they lost to Fairfield. So
yeah,
they beat South Point last week. So
yeah, there you go. You beat.
We'll see. We'll
beat
see
who's
what
on your schedule.
We'll see what is to come for them. But
they're definitely going to win this week. Hey, but Belpre won a game, so I mean, it's a big step forward. Now, Gaia has a chance. That would be a weird one. I know Gaia is probably not as bad as their record, but if Gaia is only a 2-point underdog at at home against Rock Hill right now on the Fantastic 50. Now, I do want to shout out one thing about the Eastern Eagles. They definitely have something that no one else in the district has, or in the area. They have a 17-game winning streak in the regular season.
nice.
Yeah,
There we
so
go.
they're the only ones, like, they have the longest current winning streak in the regular season because Ironton lost the regular season game last year. So it was.
So they won their final 2 years ago,
Yep.
undefeated last year. And then
I thought they
first
won their
final
last
this
4, but they won 4 of their last 5 that year to get into the playoffs that year. So, yeah, it's Eastern is over 500 as a program, and that's unbelievable for starting your program officially in 2015.
Yeah.
Like, to be over 500 already is just shows how...
Won a playoff game last year.
Yeah, they won a playoff game.
Should have probably won 2. But
Yeah. But, man, that was a good Waterford team,
It
which
was.
we would talk about if we covered the hockey next year.
Yeah, I think they beat Nelsonville York 12-6 this past week. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our previews. We'll start with the game we will be live streaming this week. We've hinted at it if you didn't figure it out by now. It's Northwest at Valley. Had this game a couple of years ago. It was actually the only game out of the last 5 that Northwest has won. The only name I could mention from that one is Wyatt Brackman. He looked like Peyton Hillis, and he ran like him, and that is a large reason why Northwest came away with that 37-22 win back in 2022. I believe that game was actually on my birthday, too, believe it or not.
Yay,
So
you were 20.
I was 20.
Now you're 22.
But last year, I think we actually talked about this game.
You,
No, we're
we're
not doing
feeling
that.
22.
I think we actually talked about this game last year on the podcast because Valley won 7-6, and I think there was some special team stuff that was involved that made it end that way. But very low scoring. I'm not sure that'll be the case this year. For Northwest, they're 3-2. You have Brendan Weiss, transfer from Valley's at Northwest now, senior wide receiver. You also have Carter Runyon. That's one of the big-time running backs for the Mohawks. Expect to see him. It took a lot to get that one out. Also, Colton Campbell, another senior running back. Expect to see him as well. Like we said, Northwest 3-2. They're going up a tough Valley team, 0-5, but not an 0-5 team you want to just push over and not worry about them. You want to spend a lot of time watching film. Although it's going to be kind of hard because it seems like Gabe McNeil's availability may be up in the air. Just seen some chatter that he could potentially be banged up. It would be a big loss both offensively and defensively for Valley. But if there's a bright side in the situation, it's that Anthony Aaron has seemingly broken out in this backfield for the Indians. He looked really good on the one carry we saw from him in week 1 on that first Thursday. Word is he looked pretty good against Waverly as well, so it seems like he's working his way up in the ranks. Excited to see him. I think regardless if McNeil is able to go or not, we'll probably see a little bit of him anyway if it's this close of a decision for McNeil to go. He probably won't get his typical workload, but obviously you have Aiden Wattell, who is seemingly starts to look better under center as each and every week, just week after week looks better every game. Braxton Conaway, Blake Lundy, Lex Logan, those are some guys you can expect to see outside. At least that's how it was in week 1 for Lucasville Valley. Jalen Bender, one of the best kickers in our area, knocked down a 44-yarder earlier this season, now a school record. Obviously wasn't able to connect on, I don't know how far the one was against Portsmouth.
It was like 46.
It was very long, a lot longer than it probably should have been.
Yeah.
But, for Bender, kicking, you guys firsthand last week, kicking can be a big difference maker in high school football. Judah Hanks knocks down, what was a 36-yarder? 32-yarder, and they end up winning by 3. So kicking can be the difference, especially at the high school level. So a rivalry game between these two teams. Indians have won 4 of the last 5. We mentioned Northwest's only win in that stretch was in 2022. They'll look to stay on the positive side of 500, while Valley will look for their first win this season. Should be a fun way to kick off the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's a short road trip for both teams. Obviously, we're going to be at Valley, so it'll be a short trip for the Mohawks. coming over to the Rowdy Reservation over at,
There you go.
you know, without direct knowledge of these two as rivals, I would guess that when you pretty much share a highway with another school, that you're probably pretty close rivals. Yeah. And I would guess that it's pretty similar with these two. Now with Brendan Weiss going from one school to the other, that could raise up some things as well. So this should be a fun game. I think that, you know, both teams are going to try to be really run heavy, and the up front for Valley I was really impressed with in week 1. So if they can be healthy there, I think that's an advantage for them. Obviously, Gabe McNeil being, you know, his status up in the air right now will make a big difference for Valley if he's able to go. Hopefully, whenever he's able to go again, he'll be 100%. So, you know, and if it ends up being Anthony Aaron who gets the bulk of the carries, as you said, week 1 looked really good. I heard he looked really good against Waverly as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's able to, you know, have a big game as well. And Wattell looked like he was getting more comfortable as week 1 went along at the quarterback position after not playing it for at least a couple of years.
Yep.
So I think this is going to be a fun game. I don't think you look at the record. I think you throw out the record books or records on this because you've got, you know, two schools that are very close to each other. They share a lot of sponsors, at least a lot of name sponsors. Yeah. So
yeah.
it should be fun. I'm excited for it. I'm not super pumped about the top of the press box, kind of shaky.
Hey,
at times.
You know,
but it's a great view.
Half, it is.
It is a great
beautiful
view.
stadium.
Yeah,
I love it down there.
It's the view we have of it. You get to see the whole campus. It's really nice. You can see the new bypass, the highway, where it's kind of cleared out and everything, and it's a beautiful setup. So I'm a big fan of the stadium over there at Lucasville.
So the one common opponent they have so far being Wheelersburg for Valley. It was 42-27, or excuse me, that would have been impressive for Valley. 42-7 loss to the Pirates for Northwest. It was 31-0. But when you get to that high of scoring game, it's kind of hard to tell when the dogs were called off. So it's kind of hard to use that as a comparison. For Northwest, you have the lopsided win. Both times they've lost have been games they scored 0 points. So week 1, 26-0 against at Piketon. So that was their first loss of the season. They rattled off 2 wins, 19-13 overtime win over McLean, 43-6 win at Huntington, falling to Wheelersburg in week 4, and then most recently 35-14 over Minford in week 5. For Valley, they've came extremely close. I mean, they've been within 2 scores 4 times. Right. In Portsmouth, they lose 15-12 to open the season against Colegrove. This one, besides Wheelersburg, the largest margin of loss. I don't think that's the right way to word that. But they lose by 14, 30-16 at Piketon, 25-14. So they played Piketon a lot closer than Northwest did. They come within 6 points of Waverly. As of right now, Fantastic 50 has them as 12-point favorites. One of 3 games that they're favored as of this moment, including Oak Hill in Week 8 and Memphis in Week 10. So, I mean, it seems like the computer is thinking Valley. It's a rivalry game. Valley's controlled it for the last 5 years. They've won 80% of the games the last 5 years. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to get down to the Rowdy Reservation and see what's going on in Week 6.
Yeah, it should be fun. You know, they treat us well down there at Lucasville, so looking forward to that. And, you know, to see 2 hungry teams trying to, one, get their first win, and another one to get a win over their rival that they haven't had a whole lot of success with over the last few years, but they get to do it at a place where they have won before. So that's a positive if you look at it for the Mohawks as well. So they did win the last time it was at Valley. Dewey was on that call. I was not. I don't know where I was then. What week would that have been?
Probably Week 6.
Okay, so
Brian Smith was there with me that night.
Yeah, so I would have been Adena.
Yeah.
Whoever Unioto plays the week before St. Trace.
It wasn't Adena, I remember. Oh, well, it might have been. I don't know.
Either way, doesn't really matter. But, yeah, so shout out Lucasville and Northwest. Should be a fun one.
All right, we'll move on to our final game preview. Unioto at Piketon. Unioto's won a couple years in a row now. 45-22 last season. I think Unioto's won the last handful of games minus that 2021 season with Logan and all those guys that helped Piketon win the gold ball and the league that season. But they're coming together. Unioto going to look to win their third in a row. Piketon going to look to get back in the win column against the Shermans. As of now, it seems like Unioto riding the wave would be the correct term to use, as they've just been on a roll since that Amanda game.
Yeah, they've played pretty well in that game. As we mentioned, kind of in the pregame or at the beginning of the headlines, Isaac Coy, he's got 4 interceptions in the year. He had 3 in that Amanda game. So if take those away, he's been really good throughout the year. As we mentioned, 85 of 122 through the air through 5 weeks for Coy. So obviously they're throwing the ball a lot, but he's completing 69.7% of his passes, which is obviously very good. 1,304 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Their big thing is the kind of the dearth of talent they have at wide receiver. Blake Hoops leads them in receptions, 30 catches, 309 yards, 5 touchdowns. Caden Cartwright, 15 catches for 445 yards and 5 scores. Cody Braden, 16 catches, 273 yards, 4 scores. And Jackson Zickfu, 17 catches, 234 yards and 3 scores. They don't run the ball like Zane Trace does, especially against Piketon. So it's going to be a completely different game than what Piketon faced last week, which could be an issue. You really focus on taking away the run one week, and then you got to focus on something completely different the next week is a difficult task. It'd be nice if you played teams that had the exact same, strategy. Now, the good thing for them is Paint Valley is a little more like Unioto, even though they're more run heavy than Unioto is. So it won't be 3 weeks in a row of completely different things for them. Now, for Unioto, they use Cody Braden a lot in the backfield on Friday. We'll see, is that something they want to do, or do they want to stick with, I believe it's Levi Beam, because I think Tanner Beam had the knee surgery at the other brother. I believe it's Levi Beam, who's had a couple nice games running the ball, but they've used him in a variety of different ways. Yusef Wilson's another guy they like to get the ball to run in the backfield. Now, for Unioto, their top 2 running backs coming into the year, one was a junior, one was a senior. One's out with an injury, the other one left the team. So they are down 2 guys that they expected to run the ball a lot.
I didn't know the second one happened.
Yeah, so I didn't know either until I put
some point.
I updated the stats, and Coach Hoop sent me a text like, "That's a different player." So I don't know the full details, but I know a little. So that'll
be a nice post-show conversation.
Yes. So for Unioto, 4-1, they do a really good job against the running game, which is the craziest part about the Amanda Clear Creek game, because Amanda is very run heavy, and they did a really good job against Unioto on the ground, where Unioto has been really good against the run. Otherwise, in the air, Caden Cartwright has 4 interceptions. He's closed in. I think he needs 1 more to tie a school record for career interceptions there.
Cartwright?
Yeah. He had 7 last year, so I'm guessing he'll probably get another one at some point. But he was close last week. Zickfus does a good job in pass defense. His brother does a really good job in pass defense as well. I believe that one's Judah. I think Jace is the other one. I don't think Jace plays.
There's 3 of them?
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
I didn't
Unioto's got all kinds of triplets. The Beams are triplets.
I knew
they have a sister.
I knew there was 2. I didn't know there was 3 of them.
Yeah. But yeah, they do a good job. Jack Weingartner does a really good job in the secondary for Unioto as well. David Long does a good job to help stop the running game up front. Marcel James, Ben Griffin, Bryce Jarvis, just to name a few. Landon Caruth, who was our K&B athlete of the game or player of the game a couple weeks ago when they beat Waverly. He had a couple big fumble recoveries in that game. It's a team that they use their athletes really well, and they've got a lot of them. So now for Piketon, 3-2, 1-1 overall. Luke Gaulion's had a great year overall. He hasn't been, his completion rate isn't as high as maybe you would think, but it's 45-93, but for 772 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but 428 yards on the ground and 8 scores that way. So 15 total touchdowns. So only, I think, 4 behind Isaac Coy, what he's put up, because Coy's got, I think, 1 rushing touchdown. So big thing is he's got a couple of big weapons. Mason Thacker, 25 catches, 399 yards, 5 scores. And then Zach Hanna, only 6 catches, but 163 yards in the air. Wyatt Savage, he only had 2 touches the other day, but he's had some big games for them so far. And then Buddy Wilson, he's played 3 games, 254 yards on the ground for them, 2 scores. They are a better run-pass balance than what Unioto has, but at the same time, they want to get the ball out quick and get it to their athletes. Thacker's got one of the faster first steps I've ever seen as soon as he gets the ball. So Unioto's going to have to really keep an eye on him. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of defended him similar to what they did with Cody Swords in the Waverly game, where they eliminated him from the Waverly attack. Now, they are better on the defensive side of the ball. They have 2 shutouts on the year. One was against Northwest. One was against Huntington. So better defensive team than what Piketon's shown in the last few years. So that's a big step forward for them. And they're going to have to be to keep this game close. Unioto's been really good defensively. So they got to try to keep Unioto. I would say if Unioto gets 4 scores, then Piketon's probably in trouble. But if they can keep them under that, like Amanda did, they're going to have a chance here late in the game as well.
All right, we'll move on now to the volleyball and soccer segment of the show. We'll start with a couple soccer, actually 1 soccer and 1 volleyball recap from this past week. We will start with Wheelersburg at South Webster in boys soccer.
Yeah, glad I took my umbrella. It was 2-0 Wheelersburg over South Webster. I took my golf umbrella, which, as you saw at the first attempt at the Waverly game, is a Unioto Sherman's umbrella, because my other one blew inside out. So now I have to have that as my one umbrella. I don't have money to get a new one. So it's an umbrella I've had for 25 proud years. Yeah, 25 years. It's a long umbrella. So
it looked like it was pretty good shape.
It's in really good shape. But yeah, it kept me dry. But then after the game, I realized that I was standing in a puddle the entire game. So my shoes have been wet. I'm sure they're fine now. But downpour throughout the first half. Really well played in goal by that may be wrong. Wheelersburg's Braden Bird for sure. Braden Bird. I have Aiden McNeil. I don't think that's right.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't think that's right for South Webster. The problem, McGraw. It's Aiden McGraw. Okay, good, because South Webster does not put their stuff anywhere online. So that was going to be hard. So, hey, someone figured it out. Yeah, nice. So Aiden McGraw and Braden Bird both played really well in the first half. Webster actually came closer to scoring in the first half. Bryson McClintock barely missed a ball just past the post on the ground. Hunter Bernard had a free kick that Bird made a nice save on, and also a non-goalie save was made by Carter Porter. I think it might have been McClintock was the one who took that shot, but that was a big play early in the game as well. I don't know if it was going to be a goal, but it was a nice job blocking the shot by the defender. And the Pirates, once the rain stopped, were really able to take the game over. They had a counterattack about halfway through the second half, which featured Ethan Hochstetler connecting with Nick Sylvia, who had a really nice finish in the box. He made a couple of moves because he had 2 defenders on him the entire game, but he made a couple of moves, got to his right foot, finished into the far post. Just really nice finish for Sylvia. Then I think it was the next time he got the ball. He made a couple of moves, went to his inside that time, which was going to be to his left foot, and got fouled. It's a good call. I mean, it was an obvious foul. He stepped to the penalty spot and connected to make it 2-0, and that was ultimately the finish. He has 26 goals, which leads all scorers in the area. Actually, Kiara Archer for Chillicothe flew by him. because she had 7 goals the other day.
Yeah,
so
I
she's got 28.
That probably
so,
could have been one of our headlines.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But we also just had a 7-goal game come in just now. So but that was also, it was like 11-5 her game. So, I mean, they kind of had to score most of them. So for Wheelersburg, now I will say it got a little chippy late. Now, a lot of the kids are from different places. These are close school districts and everything. But I thought the officials did an outstanding job, and I never say that. So if you're an official, I'm saying this. The officials did a great job. There was an issue. They took care of it. They took care of all just gave out yellow cards. Didn't have to give out a red card or anything, but just gave out yellow cards to the right people also, because what happened was directly in front of me. So I got to see all of it, but I thought it was really well officiated, which once again, I don't say very often. So shout out, I believe it was Nate Curley was the head official, did a really good job on that to take care of that issue. For Wheelersburg, that keeps them within a game of Menford at the top of the SOC. I think it's 2. I'm pretty sure it's 2 because they only have the 2 when they're side. Menford still has to go to South Webster. And credit to South Webster, they bounced back on Thursday and Friday. They beat Ironton St. Joseph, and then they beat Lynchburg Clay on Saturday. They're 7-3-1. They only play 1 game this week. They host Unioto on Thursday. And, the big thing for South Webster is being able to score, because defensively they're really good, led by Christian White. It's a team that, they've got to figure out ways to score. So, and when you got Hunter Bernard and Bryson McClintock, you got guys that can do it. You just got to get them the ball in the right spots. But for Wheelersburg, this week they host a really good Valley team on Tuesday, and then Northwest on Thursday. They should have a pretty good run until they play Menford on Thursday, October 10th, which is going to be a big game to look for in the future. So that's a big one. I will say Nick Sylvia is really good. He's really good. It's fun to watch. They're a good team. Check out my interview with him and I believe it was Braden Bird that night, and the article on the SOSA Ohio website if you want to read more about that game.
All right, we'll move on to some volleyball that happened last week within the Mid-State League. Fairfield Union traveled to Logan Elm. DeMar Hamlin just got an interception.
Good. I'm glad that's not what you're going to say. It's Monday night. I know they're not playing the Bengals tonight, but
the Bengals are playing.
Yeah, and that was a Monday night game.
Anyway,
we weren't doing the show then.
We were doing a basketball game. It was I forget. It was at Unioto. I don't remember who they were playing, but it was 2 years ago. Probably. Maybe. Yeah.
Somebody like that.
Anyway, back to the volleyball recap. It was Fairfield Union at Logan Elm. This one went to 5 sets.
4.
The last time.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, this one went to 5 sets the last time around. But this time it only goes to. But this time it only goes to 4 sets. Logan Elm, of course, without Claire King, who led them in killing. I don't know how else to word it, but I mean, led them in
kills.
Led them in kills up to prior to her injury. Man, that was smooth. I really drilled that.
Yeah.
But Christian Thompson, 39 kills in just 4 sets. So you got to figure if they would have played 5, she may have broke her 44 kills in a match record that she set earlier in the season. Peyton Reimer, 45 assists. She did a good job, as Shane would put it, quarterbacking the whole operation. They're 13-12 now.
13-2.
13-2 is what I meant to say. We're just smoothing through this volleyball segment. Yeah. But Eliana Hutchinson and Addison Smith did a great job filling in and have really, I think they're now 2-2 or 3-2 in matches without King. So it's not like they've fallen off. And Shane and myself both were pretty impressed with how they competed. They won the first set ultimately, but and were fairly competitive in the final 2. I think the second set was like 25-13.
Yeah, the second set was bad.
The third and fourth sets were very competitive. And Logan Elm is relatively young. They've got a lot of good pieces coming back. Eliana Hutchinson and Addison Smith both with 14 kills. Hannah Rhodes had 28 assists. I believe she'll be one of their big losses in the offseason. But Kiana Ingram will be back. She had 15. Kind of the secondary setter to Rhodes at the moment, but you got to figure next year she'll probably step into that main setting role. For Logan Elm, it sucks, right? You're without presumably your best hitter on the outside, so it's going to be a tough stretch, especially when you have to play against a team that has Christian Thompson. They have other players with Wolf and Molly Brown, and obviously Reimer, of course, setting things up. So Fairfield Union's a very good team. I think they are probably the second best team in the MSLs. It seems Bloom Carroll is just demolishing everybody.
Well, then Circleville's very good as well.
So, and Fairfield Union and Fairfield Union and Circleville have not played yet because their first match got postponed for whatever reason. Their rematch was scheduled for October 10th. I don't know if they've scheduled the makeup date for that first game yet, but that would definitely be one to watch if you could.
Yeah, and speaking of watching, if you haven't watched this match, which based on the numbers of viewers you haven't, make sure to go back and watch, because if you just watch it, if you just watch Christian Thompson with like one kill, you probably won't turn it off. Yeah. Like there was one, I think it was because the fourth set, I think was 25-23. It made it 24-23. So it's one of the last two plays of the game. I'm sitting there on the camera laughing after, like, because she gets so high. I think, is she listed at 6'1"?
I'm not sure.
She's either 6 foot or 6'1", but she gets so high above the net that she is just, it's vicious how hard she hits the ball down, and it was just a straight down. Like there's no way anyone makes a play on it, and yeah, just she's so impressive. Their team really impressed me. Now this is what I'll say about Logan Elm. They're obviously going to lose Hannah Rhodes, very good player. You'll get Claire King back next year, hopefully 100%. Their JV team was an absolute machine. Like we got there early to make sure we get everything set up. I wasn't fully intended on being there. Thankfully, I was there because we were on the short side there. But I was just really impressed with what their JV team did. So they probably got a setter that can come up and help Ingram next year. Yeah, it's a really good program. Coach Reinauer does a really good job with them over there at I would assume they call it the reservation as well because they're the Braves. I don't know. But yeah, it's a new school over there at Logan Elm. Beautiful school. Yeah, gym. It's a nice gym. But
I'll be honest, I like their old one more.
I do too. But
and it had 2 levels, which I kind of figured their new one would, just because, I don't know. I feel like if you have 2 levels and you build a new gym, it usually isn't like to just 1 level. But they may have realized like they don't fill that gym.
Yeah,
up,
you don't want to make it absurdly big. Yeah, because you make it super big, you're never going to fill it. You make it too small, you're not able to host really any events. And it's a really nice area. It's got good parking and everything, but I don't know if it's big enough to host events. But they hosted us. I thought they treated us well. And,
it made it work.
Yeah,
I enjoyed my time. There could be bank for basketball. It seems like Logan Elm was one of the up-and-coming teams towards the end of last year.
Boys and girls, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the previews coming up this week. Just have 2 of them on tap.
I'm interrupting you.
All right.
We got some results in.
All
right. District champions in golf. Girls. Fairland. Westfall. Unioto. Just a second. I had one more and I lost it. Okay, Westfall. I got that already. You silly goose. So shout out to those schools. Layla Kelly from Piketon won a district championship. Paige Weiss won a district championship. So, I mean, maybe we missed some people, but or sectional championships. I would say I would lose to all of them at this point because I'm not as good. And some of the scores are really good. So good luck to those teams that have moved forward. So, yeah, there's our golf.
Nice. Way to get that included.
Yeah.
We'll move on to our previews for this week. Volleyball live stream coming up tonight, Tuesday night. Unioto at Adena, the second meeting between the 2 teams. The second match, the second time around through the league for both teams as well. 5-setter the first time around in favor of the Warriors back on August 29th. For Adena, they're 12-3, right? They sweep all the way through the first time around the SVC. They're 8-0 in the conference, 12-3 overall. For the Warriors, it's been a lot of Katie Burns, 266 kills, a little over 5.5% for Corinne Day. A little lower, but still extremely dominant for the Warriors. 168 kills with 3.7%. I think Addison Wisecup and Caroline Glandon are very reliable hitters. Maybe secondary options, just in terms of the numbers, how they look for Adena. I thought they were impressive when they got opportunities. And Kayla Grooms and Courtney Sowers, very near to an even split. They both average right around 4.5 assists per set. 211 for Grooms, 208 for Sowers. Adena's won 6 in a row. And for Unioto, it seems like this has been their toughest stretch of the season. They've lost three of their last 4 matches, including a 1-2 stretch in the conference, with losses to Huntington and Zane Trace. I think they maybe snuck a win over Westfall.
Yeah, so like even the team they beat is solid.
Right.
I mean, Westfall beat Wheelersburg, so I mean it's. And then you have
Westfall beat Wheelersburg?
I didn't know a couple weeks ago, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And then, for Unioto also, you also played South Webster in there as well. So it's not the easiest stretch for them, but, they get to bounce back on Tuesday and play Katie Burns, who's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll just throw this out there. Sorry to interrupt. Christian Thompson, really good. I think Katie Burns is probably right next to her. Hey, we'll probably talk about this next week.
Yeah, we'll just leave that for next week.
Yeah, we will talk about that next week, especially with this current game that we're talking about.
But for Unioto, 11-5, 5-3 in the SVC. Firmly in third place, 2 games behind Huntington, 3 games back from Adena. Obviously, Stully, 170 kills on the season, 3.2%. Allie Park, a little bit behind at 124. She leads the team in blocks with 34. And then Jade Stewart, Isabel Link, both around 110. Alyssa Stanley, 362 assists on the season, right at 6.5%. And Kinsley Batson, 141 assists, 4.4%, seemingly the secondary role behind Stanley, who will be, obviously that'll be a senior-sophomore combination next year before you would presume Batson would take over in a couple years. So
yeah, it looks like they're going a little more heavy on the Stanley the last few games. So I don't know if that's just kind of trying to figure things out, or maybe they figured something out and they like it. But yeah, so that's kind of, Stanley had a big game in the Huntington loss as far as assists go. But these teams, it was a very evenly matched match the first time, which was Katie Burns had 11 kills in the 5th set. So that was that was kind of all you needed to know in that one. Was she completely took that match over. As you mentioned, Day, Wisecup, Glandon provide some really good other options for them at the net if Burns is in the back row. I was impressed with what Glandon was able to do in that Huntington match. And then, Kayla Grooms, Courtney Sowers have done a really good job taking over the setter roles, splitting between those two. They've got some really good defensive players. The other Sowers.
Cameron,
yes.
There you go.
I'm old. I'm so old. But yeah, so Cameron Sowers, JC Smith, Kimmy Dalton do a really good job defensively for them as well. It's a team that's hard to score on. We saw that a couple weeks ago when you and Shane called their game with Huntington. This one, it's going to be hard for Unioto to score. And this one as well, as it seems like, as you mentioned, 6 in a row for Adena. They seemingly are playing their best volleyball right now. And, yeah, it should be a fun matchup anyway. Really good setup out there at Adena. You and Shane, I'll be checking in when I'm over in the township tomorrow night for Southeastern at Huntington. So I'll be watching you guys from afar.
You want to wrap it up with your Thursday night tilt?
Yeah, Thursday night, big SOC 1 boys soccer match between Ironton St. Joseph, the Flyers, taking on the Lucasville Valley Indians at the Rowdy Reservation. So St. Joseph 9-2, 3-0 in the SOC. They have outscored their conference opponents 32-1 so far. Not bad.
Nope.
Wesley Neal, who is second in the Southeast District in goals, has 24 goals. He also has 10 assists. Landon Rowe, 16 goals, 11 assists. Jack Whaley, only a sophomore. Rowe and Neal are seniors, but Jack Whaley, only a sophomore, 11 goals, 14 assists. St. Joseph is a much more forward-thinking team as far as offense. They're going to come at you in waves. They've got a lot of players that can really fill it up. Their game with South Webster wasn't very close, but they played Minford to a really close game. It was either 4-3 or 3-2, one of the two, but it was a really tightly contested game, which to me shows they're going to be able to compete with a lot of teams. So Lucasville Valley, not a whole lot of stats out there, but Chase Davis leads them with 7 goals. They're 5-1-1 on the year, 3-0 in the SOC. Carter Ruby hasn't scored, but he has 6 assists. Those two are their senior leaders. And Jackson Bender has 5 goals. They're a more defensive-oriented team overall. They've only scored 27 goals on the season, but they've also only given up 6. I got to this match last year. I think I've told you where I spent 2 weeks in Texas. It was over 100 degrees every day, and I get down there, it was like 71 degrees. I've never been colder in my life. And it was such a nice night, but I was so cold the whole game. So, should be a fun matchup. I'm planning on being there. Some things may come up if not, but hopefully we're able to get full coverage on that game as it is. I know we have a photographer there for sure. So, that's going to be a big game in the SOC 1. 2 really good programs, a lot of purple, a lot of gold going to be in the area, as that's both teams' colors. So, should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And, it's good Division 5 soccer. I know they're both Division 5. I'll tell you what, Division 5 is going to be crazy because Minford is somehow Division 5. And so is Lynchburg, South Webster, Ironton St. Joseph, Lucasville Valley. I'm sure there's some other good schools as well, but it's a really tough division to get out of.
You ready to get out of here?
True that.
It's been a pretty long episode.
Yeah, gonna go have a party.
Not tonight. All right, unless you have anything extra.
It was a long episode. I didn't think it was going to be that long.
Yeah, Josh Allen has thrown like 3 touchdowns since, and James Cook dropped like a 25-yarder, so I'm not very happy. But
it happens.
Yeah, I hate Mondays a lot. So
there's a song about that.
There's probably a lot of songs about hating Mondays.
Yeah. I'll tell you about it after we get off this.
All right, well, that'll do it. Get out, watch some games. If not, volleyball stream Tuesday night. And football game this Friday. So
yeah, and then check out our writers throughout, as we'll have
or don't
presumably coverage of a variety of things throughout the week. Maybe, probably, more likely than not. But at the same time, we appreciate Perfection One and all of our other sponsors as well. So we appreciate being able to do what we do.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode of Overtime, presented by Perfection One.